Titus Welliver. Television loves anti-heroes. What differentiates Hieronymus Bosch from other anti-heroes these days?
He is a guy who has a very, very strong moral compass. Um, but I think what pushes him into the anti-hero um, column is the fact that he's a guy who, while he's not an unfriendly or unpleasant person, he doesn't really have an inherent desire to be liked. And so he sort of goes through life with his elbows out a bit.
And Bosch is actually based on a series of books that are still coming out. It started in 1992. And has your performance influenced the books at all? I know with Justified, then Elmore Leonard started writing his characters differently based on how they're being played on TV.
Michael has said to me that when he writes now, Harry, he has my mug in his face when he's writing. So perhaps on some way it has influenced it.
I read that they had you do this thing called shoot, don't shoot when you were starting out trying to get a feel for the character. Can you tell us more about that and how that helped you?
Well, Shoot Don't Shoot is like a giant video game, and you have a light-sensitive weapon, and images are projected on a screen, very large, and it's live action, and there are different scenarios that play out where you have suspects, you have situations with a domestic dispute, and it's really a judgment call as to what warrants, deadly force versus something else. So you have scenarios where you pull someone over in an automobile and they're behaving sort of erratically, two passengers in a car, and the passenger reaches inside of his coat, and so it's a split-second judgment thing because sometimes he's reaching for a cell phone, and then in other scenarios he's reaching for a weapon. And what that really did for me was your adrenaline, even though you're technically playing a video game. Um, you, for myself, there were several detectives and a monitor in the room with me, and of course, one always wants to do well, even if you're playing Call of Duty at home, obviously. Um, so there is there is a right and there is a wrong answer, and so there's that pressure there. But also your adrenaline in those scenarios goes up because you have someone who's using profanity and sort of intimidating body language, but that doesn't mean that it warrants pulling your weapon. So it's really a big judgment call. So in that way, it was helpful. I mean, overall, something that's actable, maybe not so much, but to do that exercise was.
Has anything surprised you about the role, like other than just the size of it?
He's a man of very few words, and he's not an overly emotionally demonstrative character. So there are moments of silence where we find Harry alone, and the temptation would be to have him either speak or a voiceover narration to sort of let us know what he's thinking. But something that the writers and I really agreed on was that we didn't have to say anything, that to find Harry in those moments of being sort of public and private for the audience really resonate. And he has there's a damaged quality. I mean, like I said, he has a very, very strong moral compass, and he's very good at what he does. But he's a guy who has had a very kind of broken life. Starting from the loss of his mother and coming up in the foster system, having a really kind of brutal childhood, which has informed the adult that he has become. He is really an advocate for the victim, and he treats all cases the same way, and that makes for a lot of interesting things to play.
So I think a lot of people know you from the show Lost. Your character does span the pilot to the finale, but if people ever talk to you about it, do you ever think like, hey, I was just in 3 episodes, I've had a long career, this was a long show?
Well, I'm very proud to have been a part of that whole universe, and a show that I thought was really interesting and well written and really well acted. I have had that experience where people will reference episodes that I was in where it was, and I said, well, that really wasn't me. That was a computer generated effect. But that sort of is a testament to the quality of the writing and the investment on the part of the viewers, that of course they know it was a computer generated effect, but the mythology is so strong in their minds that they link that and my live performance with that character. I thoroughly enjoyed that experience, and I'm always touched when people approach me and talk about it. I'll never get tired of people talking about the Man in Black. He was a character close to my heart, as short-lived as it was technically. Um, it was a really interesting character.
And did you ever try to sync up your performance with Terry O'Quinn's?
I saw Terry on set and we sort of chatted, but we never really spoke about the connective tissue with those characters. It was nice to be in the presence of. I live in a kennel, not really. It was just nice to be in his presence. He's an actor whose work I've watched and respected for a long time.
What would you consider your big break as an actor?
I would say that probably the early work that I did with David Milch on NYPD Blue, and then Brooklyn South, and then Big Apple and Deadwood were, every time I worked with David, it seemed to sort of thrust me forward. So, and I'm very proud of the work and the privilege of working with David Milch. It's sort of difficult to say because everyone seems to have the characters that they're partial to. Many people love Crazy Jimmy O from Sons of Anarchy. So I think it's all within the eyes of the audience. I don't seem to be pigeonholed and known necessarily for one particular role. I've been very blessed that in participating in different shows, they've been pretty iconic characters within the universe of those shows, like Lost and Sons of Anarchy and Deadwood and now Bosch.
Now, we normally see you in like 6 or 7 things a year, but since Bosch has started, it's been just Bosch. So do you have any other projects that you have coming up?
Even though it was sort of short term, the intensity of doing Bosch really consumed me, and I felt like I needed to just sort of take a break and spend time with my family. So I've been doing that, which has been really therapeutic. But also in that, I've been reading the books for the second season, and for me, it was just a command decision to take a little bit of time off. But I've already, I think I've exhausted that for myself. I'm ready to. I'm missing Harry. I'm ready to jump back into his shoes.
And what can you tell us about that second season?
Well, we're going to pull from 3 different books: The Drop, Trunk Music, and The Last Coyote. And so the stakes, as if they weren't high enough in the first season for Harry, are even more elevated. His ex-wife and his daughter come under the cloud of danger. Harry is dealing with the mafia. There are a lot of balls in the air in this one. So, and we also see Harry returning from a 6-month suspension.
Your name is Titus Welliver. Did you feel at all that they're trying to one-up you with a character named Hieronymus Bosch?
Well, we're both named after Dutch painters. I was named after Rembrandt's son. My father was a painter and liked the name Titus. And so there are some very interesting connections there. I have always loved Hieronymus Bosch's paintings, so it's sort of interesting that, and being the son of an artist and also being a painter myself, that these things, coincidence, I think not.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Titus. We look forward to seeing the second season and encourage everybody to watch the first season as well.
Thank you so much.